What's up, big dog? I can't hear you. Your audio's not coming through. There we go.
Shit, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you. I'm actually gonna put my
the headphones in.
Fucking microphone on too, but so you can probably hear me better. I should use the mic. Can you hear me now? I kind of hear some shit in the background.
Man, can you hear that?
Yeah, you're like really low though.
Is that any better?
It's a little better. Yeah.
That's probably the best it's gonna get from me because I'm talking
It's
directly into
not
this bad
super
boy.
horrible. So I mean, it'll serve the purpose.
Dope. Alrighty, man. So we don't really have any nailed down topics or anything like that. So I was thinking maybe you want to take a chance to just kind of introduce yourself. I'll follow up, and then we'll just kind of dive in from there.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm Jack the Beast. I'm obviously conservative. I'm probably actually relatively far right for the most part. Goddamn patriot, and that's about it. Go for it.
Dope. Appreciate that. So obviously, the name's Mute the Media. I wouldn't say that I'm like left. Depends on the view. Ultimately, I call myself an issueist, right? I try and take everything in for the single thing that it is, consider the variables, consider the context, try and drop the preconceived notions, things like that. The goal with Mute the Media and the goal with this right here is to have these conversations, right? Big tech, corporate media, legacy media, they don't want this shit to happen, right? They don't want people to have conversations. They kind of support the division. So my hope is that we can actually have these civil conversations, even though we have pretty hard disagreements, right? I know a lot of your followers and people on your page do not fuck with me, which is fine. I have some pretty harsh opinions towards them, right? But hopefully we can kind of bridge that gap here. So,
We shall try. I don't know. To start off, let me ask you a question. So we hear a lot on the right about how all Trump supporters are racist. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like that's true? Do you feel everybody on the right is a racist white supremacist or what?
no, definitely not. Obviously, even myself, right? I'll speak in ways where we all generalize, right? But the reality is everyone talks their shit, right? You have your videos where you call the left all of this, right? Democrats all of this, liberals all of that.
Right.
So I think it's kind of disingenuous when either side gets mad about, oh, you generalize. Yeah, that's what this country does. We fucking generalize, right? So, now you're chill, man. So I think what we need to do then is kind of dive into the data, right? Dive into the numbers. And the issue is, for me, a key word is systemic racism, right? So there's lots of ways we can address that. But when someone dismisses
Well, I
systemic
mean, is
racism,
there really systemic racism? I want to know because when we say the police department is systemically racist, there's black mayors, there's black police captains. So how is it systemically racist?
so it's
I don't understand.
important. So it's yeah, good question. So it's important to understand the difference between like when we're talking about racism versus systemic racism. So when we're talking about systemic racism, this is a population level topic. So we're looking at
Okay.
outcomes across demographics, right? The things you're pointing to are anecdotal evidence, right? So population level conversations accumulate all of the anecdotal evidence, right? That's why we utilize data for the whole group, not just anecdotes, right? So to your point, you can always find examples of people who rise above their conditions, right? You got to play the hand you're dealt no matter what, right? Doesn't
Yeah, but
matter.
if we're using numbers and data, it's shown data wise that more white people are killed by cops every year than black people. So how is it
As a
racism?
raw number, that's a total number. There's more white people in this country, right? A fuck ton more white people in this country, right?
And I mean,
So
the
then,
thing is,
so then,
I have way more people on the left telling me how we're so racist. And from what I've seen, you got to understand the the left is who created the KKK, and now you basically have the new version of the KKK because they do all the same stuff.
what's the new version
You
of the
focus on race.
KKK?
Not you specifically, but the left. They focus on race. So did the KKK. They also burned down stuff. The KKK burned crosses in front of houses. The left and Antifa just burns down, people's businesses. False narrative, which you guys do on your
Exactly.
news stations all the time. So a lot of it almost seems like the same aspects. And then also the fact that you teach blacks that they're less than, because that's what the KKK did as well. But the way the left does it is they come up with these false narratives like the idea of white privilege and the idea of white guilt.
Okay, so it seems like you just regurgitate a lot of talking points. Is there a question you have there, or is there something you want to actually point to specifically to support
Well,
those claims?
I'm putting points out there. If you'd
Yeah,
like to
but then
comment on it,
so yeah,
absolutely.
we put points out and then we
I'm
support
sorry,
those
it
claims,
was a
right?
lot. I know.
Which is fail. No, no, it's totally chill. But then support some of those claims. You're just making claims. You're not supporting your argument anyway. So
I
do you
mean,
have
they're
like
pretty
some data? Do you have
factual. I
like
mean,
ways?
it's if you really want to compare it, it
Well,
looks like
so truth. Let's go into facts. So you talked about how white people are killed more by cops than black people. You didn't really want to
that's a
address
true
that.
fact.
Exactly, but there's nuance to that, right? Because as we all know, data can be misleading if we don't actually understand the numbers, right? So to your point, white people get killed by more cops than black people, but that's because there's way more white people in the country. If you look at it per capita, black men are 2.5 more times likely to get killed by a cop than white people. To this point,
I mean,
I'm going to
they
continue.
also
I'm going to
commit
continue
murders
giving you
in
data. I'm going to continue giving you data
because of
here.
popularity.
I'm going to continue giving you data here. All right. So I gave you the floor, and I'm going to take the floor now.
Go for
So
it.
also, we need to remember there's this narrative, right, of law and order, policing is very dangerous, right? Policing is not even one of your top 10 most dangerous jobs in America. That's facts. That's a data, right? Also,
True.
do you know what one of the top 10 most dangerous, one of the top 10 leading causes of death is for black men in America? Police force. It's top five actually, right? Do you know what? Do you know that doesn't occur? None of the top 10 leading causes of death for white men is cops. It's not. So that's data. All right. So when we dismiss this conversation, it reeks of privilege, which I know people don't like that, right? Privilege is a buzzword, but the reality is we know that when you actually account for the data correctly, you compare not just raw numbers, but we account for per capita, right? We make it the proper comparison. It happens 2.5 times more likely. And like I said, I'll just repeat, it's one of the top 10 leading causes of
Now,
death for black men.
2.5 times more likely is not a real number, but I mean, where are
That's
you
no, no,
going?
that's
Is it
that's a
from the
real number.
FBI or where's it
No,
from? I
we're
want to
not
know.
gonna do. No, we're not gonna do that. When I actually give you a number, you're not just gonna dismiss it unless you have a way to dismiss it. So that's not gonna be acceptable.
Well, I want
If
to
you have,
know if it's factual because if it's coming from CNN, it's probably not.
that's from the U.S. Department of Justice, by the way.
Okay, there you go. That's all you had to do.
Thank you. So your thoughts on that number, which would be a direct example of systemic racism in our criminal justice system?
How do you feel about defunding the police?
Your thoughts on? Well, I'll get to that. We'll talk about defunding the police because I think there's actually a lot to unload there. That's a fair
I just
question.
thought it was kind of in the same subject. That's why I brought it up.
No, for sure. It is in the same subject, but I would like to know what you think about that data, which does confirm one
I
aspect
think
of
it was
systemic
true that there's
racism.
probably a problem, but I don't think it entails systematic racism. I just don't.
No, no, you're right. Not systematic, systemic. Those are two different things. 100%.
Well,
I
I don't
agree.
think it's systemic either. I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say. I
Well,
just
can
don't
you,
think it does.
well, do you mind defining systematic and systemic for me?
Well, systemic is basically that it's built up from up above, and that it basically drips downhill, And I just don't think that that's the case, because the uphill most these days, I'm not. I forget where you. I think you're in California. Well, I'm in
Yeah, yeah.
D.C. and we have a black Democratic mayor. Baltimore next to us, also black Democratic mayor with a black police chief. So those are the top. So I don't understand how that works as far as what you're saying.
Because those are two different conversations. So again, that's why I keep pointing to when we're talking about systemic racism, we cannot point to anecdotal evidence. What anecdotal evidence is experience. So let me explain this. So just because systemically, just because when we look at different, so here's the thing. Maybe this makes it easier. I think we kind of all agree that the United States of America, as it stands right now, is not really working for the people, regardless of who they look like, right, left or right. Would that be kind of fair?
Yeah,
And so we could start
we
with,
can
would you
say that.
say, yeah, and so would you say maybe it's fair to say there's some, without even using the word racism, there's some systemic inequalities for everybody, right? Some people just get fucked by this system, right? Is that fair?
Okay, fair enough.
Um, and is it fair to say then within that fuckery, some people get it even worse, depending upon maybe gender, religious minorities,
No, I
ethnic
don't think it is, and
minorities?
I think that even goes to the Derek Chauvin case. Is Here's the deal: we're not going to talk about the trial. We're not going to talk about the guilty verdict. It's irrelevant. But you know what? There's not proof of that there was racial intent. There is no proof. But
Yeah, I agree with that. You can't prove racial intent directly.
you can't prove it. So there's no proof of that. But what did we do as America on the left is we made it racial because it's part of their narrative. And that's all that matters.
Well, here's the issue with that because I think there's some fairness to what you just said at the beginning there, right? You can't prove Chauvin's intent in that moment, right? And I don't think that he killed George Floyd directly because he was a black man. But there is, again, this is why we have to look at the data, right? And we know that these encounters between cops and white men, and we'll just use men here because if we're talking about systemic inequalities, for example, men, whether you're a black man, white man, etc., they get it way worse in terms of the criminal justice system than women, for example, right? There's lots of ways to have this conversation, and that's why the privilege conversation gets a little myopic sometimes, right? Because there's lots of privilege, right? So,
I
for
can
example,
agree with the women men thing. Yeah,
like
absolutely.
let me give you an example. Like you're a big, tall, strong looking dude, right? That's going to afford you some level of privilege in life because people kind of look to that as strong, right? And they might kind of gauge their reaction towards you in that way. Versus some scrawny looking dude, right? He might have a certain reaction to that immediately, right? There's all sorts of kinds of privilege. We just have to kind of accept the fact that some things in life we don't fucking control how we come out, but it is what it fucking is, and we make the best of it, right? So again, going back to that conversation, I hear you that like I would agree that the left tosses the isms around way too much, like way too much. Like anytime they disagree with someone, oftentimes
The
they
biggest
resort.
problem we have with race in America is that we make it about race. Okay, if we spent less time on that, but we spend way too much time on making up all these new genders and canceling gender. If we cancel race and we were just America, we just have unity. And that's where the problem is we don't have that, and that's why, and they don't want us to have that.
And who would you say is they? I want to dive into that a little bit because I don't necessarily disagree with all that. I just who do you think they is? Let's flesh that out a bit.
What are you saying? Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. So you're saying like they, right? So who do you think they, like? So like, and I'm
Well,
not even disagreeing.
majority of the left, but when I say they, in that circumstance, I
Hmm.
kind of mean everybody.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just like because I'm not like pushing
Yeah.
back so much as trying to like identify.
Now, I would say it comes more from the other side, but I'm going to say everybody when it comes down to it. If we in general just stop fucking focusing on that, then we could maybe get somewhere. But everything has to be about race, okay? And what I'm going to say is America is more of a cultural country than it is a racial ethnic country because we have so many different races. It's more cultural. When people come here from other countries, they don't understand the culture sometimes. But that's what it's really more about. It's not an ethnicity thing.
So there's something to be said for the lack of we're not a very homogenous population, like you said, right? So there's a lot of diversity, different ethnicities, races, religions, unlike any country I really know of in the world, right? So of course that's going to add a level of just complication to any kind of group endeavor, right? Like our country. So totally, right? I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough is how well we might be doing considering all the historical tensions and shit and all the shit that still might be happening today, right? And I will agree that people on the left aren't quick enough to acknowledge there have been improvements. But the thing is, if you're, it's easy for me to comment on improvements being made because I'm not directly impacted by these things that we're talking about, right? So it's easy for me to say, oh, why are we talking about race? Because race isn't a big deal for me. It just isn't. But some people live a different experience in America where their race is a big deal because the color of their skin, they do get treated differently at times, right? Now, maybe I don't think you do that. I'm sure that you see someone in your day-to-day life, you don't care, right? You treat everyone the same, right? As long as you
Yeah.
show me respect, I'll show you respect. And I think most conservatives are that way, right? In their day-to-day life, it doesn't matter what you look like. If we're talking, let's talk. It's all good. You're a person. I think the problem is I don't think people always realize and the left is a really bad. They do such a bad job about this. I do this shit too. Is we don't explain shit well because oftentimes someone can I've said racist shit and there's no intent there. I didn't mean to be racist, but then someone called me out and I was like, oh fuck, I didn't realize that was kind of a problematic belief. I kind of explored a bit. You're right. I'll try not to do that anymore. My bad. Fuck. And you kind of just own that moment. But I think there's this disconnect where I think people on the right often think, and people on the left too, that you have to have intent behind racism, and it doesn't have to necessarily be just something overt and someone purposely trying to like disparage you. Oftentimes we just say shit where we demean another race without realizing it, right? So for example,
Well,
one of the
yeah, but
things I
the
always want
idea
to
of
go ahead.
everybody voting for Donald Trump is racist doesn't make any sense to me. Because first of all, there's no base on it. Um, Trump is not racist. Nobody has any proof of it. He might come out his mouth sometimes, but
Let me give you
you
an
know,
example of his racism. And I'll say this right now: Joe Biden said racist shit, so I'm not doing like the
okay,
Joe
thank
Biden has
you.
said
Because I
racist
was going to
things.
say I
Yeah,
can name multiple things about Joe Biden right now
yeah. So and
that
and
he
so I
said
would
recently.
yeah I would agree. Joe Biden, because they're both a product of an era that was overtly racist. It doesn't. I'm not excusing it. That's what that era was. All these old ass motherfuckers in our government who we all want gone, right, left and right. I don't like Nancy Pelosi. Fuck her. I want her gone. I don't like Mitch McConnell either. I want him. I want all of them gone,
And
dude. I want all
I
these
can
fucking.
respect all of that. Hey, I'm not meaning to cut you off right now, but what I am going to say before we get deeper into this,
Yeah, chill.
because I see a lot of people being muted on my side. Look, if you're on my side, be on my side. Do not go over there and troll him, and vice versa. Don't come over here and troll my people. Just
Yeah.
leave it alone. Let us have our conversation, and let's keep this normal. Okay?
Let me add to that because he doesn't have to be doing this. I don't got to be doing this. I'm pretty sure we both have shit we want to be doing tonight. You know what I'm saying? So to that point, the whole reason me and him are doing this is to try to actually have a conversation. Obviously, we're going to disagree on shit. Obviously, me and him are kind of fiery people, so it might get a little contentious. But at the end of the day, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to walk away. Feel free to disagree. You know what I'm saying? Do that. Have good conversations in the comments and shit. But we're not going to mass report people. We're not going to cancel people. We're not going to harass people. All right? I know I hate it when people from the right come and do that shit. So it has to be just as fucking annoying when people from the left go and do that shit. So let's not do that shit. All right? The whole point about this right here is having a conversation. All right? If you want to go do that shit, go do it somewhere else because there's plenty of it in the world. So back to you, my dude.
Again, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I just
No, you're
wanted to
chill,
put
man. You're
that
totally
out
no, because
now.
that's important. We should have probably put that out there in the beginning, honestly. So good,
We
good call.
talked about doing it at the beginning, and I forgot about it. I got right into it, so I was like, let's just do it.
I was amped for this shit, dude, because everyone was like talking so much shit. I was like, I'm gonna be there, like.
Yeah. I don't have.
So
I mean, we don't have time to even pay attention to the comments. Let's be honest.
no, we don't. That's why we need. That's why moderators do your shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, yeah. So let's go back there because I think we just found actually a good agreement area, right? That all these fucking dinosaurs in government got to go. I don't care left or right. They've all been there for fucking decades, and they're out of touch. They're not there for
I
any of
think there
us.
should be an age that they should be out.
Oh, so kind of like a term limits conversation.
Yeah.
All right, dude. I'm not gonna
I
lie to you.
just do. It's nothing against anybody specifically, but it's just in general.
No, I
You
hear you.
know.
Because when you look at our government, how long have these fuckers been in here to that point, right? So maybe we got to do something. But this is why that conversation annoys me. Not because like it's a bad idea. It's actually probably a good idea considering how we are as a country. But it's like, bro, term limits is just us fucking voting. Like we don't vote. Like like we don't fucking vote. We don't vote incumbents out. And this is the left and right. Look how many Republicans have been there forever. Look how many Democrats have been there forever. We don't vote
Right.
motherfuckers out. Because that's what a term limit is. It's me and you showing up at that voting booth, right? So it's like one of those things that actually kind of annoys me. It's like if we just
Yeah, we can
utilized our
actually
right.
agree on some shit.
What's up?
We can actually agree on some shit.
Yeah, that's one. Dude, there's things like my goal in here actually. I want to talk about some. I was actually gonna try and talk about shit we agree on and figure out. Let's do like a good one first, and then we can dive into the contentious shit. Because I think we all know the issues of like race, even religion. Sometimes those are really personal. So of course those are gonna be just tough conversations because we all have our own experience, right? So I was gonna try
Of
and hopefully
course.
talk about gun control, for example, because I usually fuck with you guys more on that convo, and maybe talk about immigration because I think this country agrees more on immigration than they realize. And I think both
Well,
parties
I
have,
don't agree on illegal immigration at all.
yeah. Well, I think to that point, I think most people would agree. This is fairly general, and obviously maybe not open borders people, like so far lefties and like pure libertarians. If you're an open borders person, you're not going to like this comment. But
I
any
mean, you understand
system,
it's went to shit since Biden's taken. You know.
well, that's where I would say, to Trump's credit, I don't agree with his specific policy, but there's something to be said for tough rhetoric as it impacts migration rates at the border,
Yeah,
like
but
100%.
the problem is Biden came in and he took away a bunch of policies that were actually helping the border.
I
And
would argue that
now
it
we're
was
getting
less the
flooded.
policies.
And now all of a sudden he's talking about building the wall that he was so against building because he's getting pressure. And he's been in office over 110 days now. He hasn't been there once. Kamala Harris has been apparently over it for 45 days, hasn't been there once. And what's happened, they're not letting the media come there. However, what's really happening is the media has basically just became the fucking government, and the Republicans like Ted Cruz have become the media because they're the ones going down there and actually showing us what the hell is happening.
So I'm gonna actually jump in there because I actually agree with a decent amount of that. My thing is I don't fuck with left or right on immigration because I think they failed for like the last 30 years on it, and I think there's an even deeper issue that's not just immigration we can point to with that. I'll kind of wrap it up on the back end with that. First of all, I agree. just from a strategic standpoint, like let's just say hypothetically, I don't think this by the way. Let's just say hypothetically Biden's doing a good job on the border. You still have to fucking go down there. Just the optics of it alone as a politician, like even if it doesn't matter, you have to give a fuck,
And she's
right? So
showing face at least.
and
Okay?
exactly.
Even if it's up front,
That's what I'm
you
saying.
show face.
And that's why I'd
So
agree that
I think
Kamala should have
that's
gone
an
down
epic
there.
fail on him in general. And, Kamala is blaming it on COVID, but she's traveling everywhere else.
I don't know about that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know about that myself, so I can't
Well, she
comment
went
back
to
on
like
that.
New York or something in the last few days.
Oh, it makes
So,
sense. But
I'm not saying she's traveling all over the goddamn world, but what I am saying is that she's blaming going there on that, and she's still going other places.
oh
So
no,
don't
I'm
blame
not
it on
even.
that.
Yeah, I'm not pushing back against you. I'm just saying I can't agree or disagree because I don't know. So I'm just that's just I'm
Yeah,
like
no,
saying
that's
I'm taking
fine.
you. Yeah, yeah. Because oftentimes like when you say something, it's probably the same thing. People like want you to respond with something, right? And it's like I can't just say that because I don't know that, right? So it's like. So I just like I have to leave that one be. But to your point, I think if you're going to be put in charge of the border, given what's happening, it's a fucking big issue down there. It's a
I mean,
huge
it's a
issue. There's a
crisis
lot. Of,
down there,
yes,
and
I'll use the
let's
word
not act
crisis.
like it's not. You
I'll
know
use the
what's
word
what's
crisis.
happening down there, besides the amount of people coming in that are actually getting caught. There's a good amount of people that are coming in that are not getting caught, and drugs are coming in. A lot of things are coming in. Trafficking is
That's
coming in.
one
There's a lot of things happening.
that's one thing that's a bit of a misconception. So here's where it's like it just I think it's nuanced
How is
because
that a
again,
misconception?
it's not that you're incomplete. It's not that you're wrong, by the way. It's just I would add more to it. So again, it goes back to the entire issue we've had at our border for about the last 30 years. Being from California, I understand why there's not movement from Democrats on some of this. All right, who's a lot of our agriculture work. You know what I'm saying? So there's a reason why both sides haven't been exactly motivated to fix this issue as best as possible. And it goes back to let's go with Obama, for example, and look at DACA. Whether we agree with DACA or not, you can't do shit through EOs because what happens is the next president comes along and they just do their own thing. And then the next president comes along and they do their own thing. As a country, we have to get back to doing things through Congress, legislatively, the right way. No, like both sides, the last 20 years have not been doing this shit. It's been more and more EOs, president by president by president. And I don't, and that's why I think the immigration issue, we just keep, every administration just keeps punting it down the line. They just keep punting it, punting it, punting it. No one actually wants to take a real stand and do something now.
Yeah.
I'll go back to it. I agree that because Biden, so there's like again, it's
Evie,
back to what I
can
was
you
saying.
hear me better? Sorry, they're saying they
Hey, you're
can't
good.
hear me that well. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, you're chill. I can totally hear you.
All right.
If you need to test your sound, you're good. Do your thing.
Yeah, I turned it up. It should be fine. Let me ask. So I
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
want to switch the subject up just because this is
No, you're
something I've
fun.
seen on your stuff lately.
Go ahead.
Um, Flag burning. What's your thought process?
So yeah, I'll explain that shit because I got a lot of fucking blowback on that. So the thing with that is, I'm not saying go burn your flag. I've never seen someone burn a flag in a tasteful way. Anytime I've seen it myself, I found it offensive. 100%.
Okay.
What I'm saying in those videos is it's your constitutionally protected right. That's a fact. All right. And if we are a country that values free speech, we protect that right to free speech, even if we vehemently disagree with it, even if we find it offensive, right? It's like, no, that's their constitutionally protected right. I'm going to wag my finger. I'm going to say I don't agree with that. I'm going to say that's offensive. I'm going to ask why you're doing it, but I'm going to allow you to do it because that's your
All
right.
right. So I'll go with that. However, what I will say, I think it's very. What I will say is technically by the First Amendment, it is okay to do it. Is it American like? I definitely don't think it's a very American thing to do. However, what if I go burn a BLM flag?
As long as you
Why
haven't
is
stolen
that
it,
considered worse than me burning an American flag? I think that's almost sickening. Because let's be honest, BLM is a terrorist organization.
no, that's not true.
Yeah, it's true. So is Antifa.
Antifa, we might be able to make an argument for. Black Lives Matter, no.
Antifa, here's the thing. With BLM, nobody thinks Black lives don't matter. Okay? That's not a thing. We don't agree with the organization. It's not the idea.
So what's
It's
it?
the
Let's flesh
organization.
that out. That's fair. So let's talk about some of the things you might not like for the with the organization real quick. What's something you might not like with them that they've done or
Well,
said?
first of all, they don't do shit for Black lives. Okay, they're not in the Black communities doing anything. She's buying mansions, and they're Marxist. I mean, they are admitted Marxist, which, if you understand the definition of that, it's basically fucking stealing from people.
What's the definition of
However,
Marxism?
what's ironic about it? is now she's not a Marxist anymore because there's no such thing as a successful Marxist. But the bottom line is, it's the organization is it's not about Black lives. And you can watch Officer Tatum, you can watch a whole bunch of people, and they'll tell you all about it. There's a lot of people that agree that it's just a BS organization.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who disagree, so that's not really doesn't really mean anything. To your point, I'm not going to disagree that some of the funding is not fucking wildly problematic, right? But the thing is, there's so many different chapters, there's so many different groups, there's so many different people who are working with Black Lives Matter to just completely like just dismiss the group like that is just confirmation bias for starters, because you're pointing to one thing. Now, I'll agree. Like, could any group who's like trying to be an advocacy group for someone be more transparent with their funding, what they're doing with the funds, things like that? 100%, right? But I would argue that, for example, I just think that anytime there's a group who's saying something that, like the family thing, for example, I think people misunderstood what they're saying about families. They're not saying we want to get rid of like the nuclear family. They're just saying we want to normalize any family, right? Because not everyone has the opportunity to have a mom and a dad like that, right? But that doesn't mean it's wrong, right? We don't shit on other families. So I think their whole point was trying to normalize just family units in general, whatever they look like. But people took that as, oh, you want to get rid of the nuclear family? No, we just want you to not try and get rid of our family, because like, and that goes back to systemic racism, and it goes back to criminal justice, and it goes back to the war on drugs, which disproportionately impacted the black community and black men, right? And so it's kind of a complex thing. We'd have to connect a lot of dots there. But I'll let you respond because I just kind of said a lot of shit. So
I mean, BLM is a joke. That's my response. I don't know what else to tell you. I think they're a terrorist organization.
based on what you're
Antifa
saying,
is
dude, bro, you're saying terrorist organization, homie. That's a
Antifa's plugged
fucking
in with
loaded
them, and we
charge.
all know it. And I know everybody on the left is like, Antifa's just an idea. They're not a goddamn idea. They have their own, yeah, their own chapters and stuff
Yeah,
too.
the left. Let me explain that actually, because people are pretty. I'll agree. I'll agree. The left dismisses that talking point, and they don't get it. So here's Antifa, folks. So, and this is the really general. You can dive into this more. But in the aftermath of fascism and all that jazz in Europe, right? There was anti-fascist movements in Europe, and they called themselves Antifa. Eventually, Antifa kind of became a thing. It got more popular here in the U.S. about 2007, 2008. And to the point, it really is the idea of anti-fascism, but there's actual chapters in the U.S. that go by Antifa. They're not really organized, but for example, you can look at Rose City Antifa in Portland, things like that. They have literature, they have their views. Um, I, I used to I used to think Antifa was like shit stains galore. But then here's the thing: if they're Antifa and I believe Donald Trump's a fascist, while I don't agree with all their methods, on some level I do fuck with that, right? And again, you just have to understand from my perspective, right? So obviously, if you don't think someone's a fascist, you're not going to agree with anti-fascists, right? If you think someone's a fascist, you're going to somewhat agree with them. I don't agree with their views
I
on
don't
our
think
First
Antifa
Amendment.
understands what the definition of a fascist is. So,
Well, how would you define a fascist? Just so we should. That's good. That's good. We should probably define the term, right?
well, I mean, the definition of it is basically a political philosophy of a regime that is normally about race, actually, that's above, um, and with a dictatorial leader, which they call us fascists because we voted for Trump. First of all, Trump's not in office anymore. So who are we? Who's our fascist leader that we're following anymore?
So
I'm
that's the thing.
confused.
Fascism is a complex thing, though, right? There's like multiple definitions for it. So, for example, it's been called the marriage of corporation and state. It's been called collective narcissism. It's been called, a movement of anti democracy, anti liberalism, anti certain religions, anti science to some degree. Although the Nazis utilized science in their own way, it was actually kind of their what they were doing was sick. But there's a
Well,
lot of
again,
things
I mean,
attached
we
to it.
can go back and really talk about stuff because when I look at the left, when I look at whatever, that comes way closer on Nazis than we do on our side.
I
Bottom
mean,
line.
everyone's gonna always think that. The problem is fascism is such a strong word because when you hear fascism, you think Hitler, right? That's usually where our minds go. Is that
Yeah.
fair? And I don't think people realize
Which is
fascism.
what everybody on the left is trying to call Trump, and it's just not true.
Well, exactly. That's why people are not good at conversations and messaging, right? Everyone likes these like little quick hitters. They don't want to have real conversations and explain their views. So it's
Well,
not
yeah.
that I
So
think.
I'm not trying to cut you off, but
No, you're true.
what you said is exactly true. So there's a two side of that. So when the left comes at us that hardcore, we of course get offended because it's just, you know what I'm saying? It's just too
Yeah.
combative.
It goes back to the whole flag burning thing. Just because you have the right, like I'll say the same thing. Like when I see someone burn the flag, my first thought is like destruction of like American symbols. Like, that's fucking deeply emotional, right? Like, we have
Yeah.
disagreements, but what everyone doesn't want to admit is we all fucking love this country for the most part. We just have different ideas about what it
We're
should look like.
supposed to.
Yeah, like we all like I love this country. Like don't get me wrong, this country pisses me off, and there's times I don't like this country at all, and there's things we've done in our history I just don't fuck with and I'll call out. But it's because I want us to get better for all of us. You know what I'm saying? Just like you guys. You guys call out certain things because you want shit to get better. The difference
So let
is
me ask you a
we gotta
question about this.
yeah, yeah.
So how do you feel about school systems pushing certain political agendas?
I mean, I would never agree with political agendas being pushed in school. I think first of all, you have to teach kids things at an appropriate age for them, and it always has to be from a critical lens, right? It's what people mistake about education is education is not putting ideas into your head. It's just teaching you how to approach ideas, how to actually critically
Correct.
think about ideas,
I just
evaluate,
think at a
right?
certain age they shouldn't be hearing these things. I know it. I know. When I was these kids' age that's getting pushed, we were
Hmm.
not getting thrown that. They should be worried about education and not
What are
all
what are
this
some
extra
key
shit.
things? Like, let's say you could like just snap your fingers and have like your school, for example. What would be like some of the key things you'd
Well,
focus on?
I'll give you a personal one that happened with me. Is I had an eighth grader that saw a Trump video that I did,
Hmm.
and the reason why they saw it, their teacher showed it to them and laughed at me and was saying how much of a joke I was.
Yeah, I don't agree with mockery like that. Now, let's say you had
I
something to
don't think
say.
that's okay.
No, let's, and that's not the
And
right
it's not even
approach.
about mocking me, but it's just about why would you go and show a bunch of probably 28th graders a video of a TikTok to just talk shit about a political view? Why would you do that?
Ego, their own ego's weak, and they got to stroke it. I
I
don't,
think
you
that's
know,
sickening, though.
it is.
I think it's sickening. I think that teacher should not have a job. You
Here's
know,
where I would, I'm not disagreeing, by the way. I just would say, like, I don't think we should, like, avoid these talk, like, these conversations in school. But to your point, it can't be pushing a view. It should just be bringing it to the table, teaching kids how to learn through it, evaluate it, and then go make your own decisions. But I'd agree. Any teacher who's bringing their own philosophy, their own views, and they're trying to make people think a certain way, that's fucked up because that goes against the whole idea of education. So yeah, you're not gonna get any
I mean, I'm
pushback
pretty
from me
sure
on
she
that.
wasn't supposed to do that.
No, yeah, you don't.
I'm
That's
gonna
just
take
it's
a
just
wild
wrong.
guess, and that wasn't allowed, and she just did it. But I still like it was insane that that's a thing. You know,
Yeah, I mean, people are fucking
it's
stupid,
definitely
right?
on the far side of things, and it probably doesn't happen all the time. But I
But
just
no,
thought it was
but
kind
it
of
was your
fucking
experience.
disgusting.
But no, it was your experience. I hear you. Shit's just frustrating. Well, and again, it's a good example of like how even adults or even people in positions we typically respect can get things wrong and do things incorrectly, and why everyone doesn't matter, teacher, cop, etc. Got to be holding people accountable, right? Making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing within their specific setting. So,
All right, so do you
the,
think Biden won fair and square?
yeah, I do.
Why?
I because I can look at our so this is a pretty easy one for me. So there's multiple things at play here. I'm going to look at our federal system, which is going to be the federal government, the state government, the local government. I'm going to look at our checks and balances, which is going to be the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch, right? I'm going to look at independent watchdog groups. I'm going to look at all of that, right? I'm going to look at, and we'll break it through. I'm just going to break it all down for you. So every state, almost every state, has a legally mandated paper trail, right? So any electronically tabulated vote has a paper trail to it that you can verify with, right? So now that helps with recounts, but let's say there's a software issue that wouldn't account for it, right?
Well, a recount
That
is just a recount, and
well,
that's
that's
why there's a difference
but
between a recount and
well, I'm gonna
an
count.
audit.
Just I'm gonna ask you to just give me like 2 minutes on this one because I got it's a kind of a, I'll go through all of it for you because I
Yeah,
hear
go
you
for it.
because that was a fair point because you weren't wrong about that actually. I was about to address that because you're not wrong. Like you're right. So you have your recounts, and there's two types, right? You can have automatically triggered recounts, to your point, which are just going to recount the same vote. So it doesn't account for any possible like software issues and stuff like that, right? That's where you need an audit, right? So you have automatic recounts if the vote's close enough, and you can demand for recounts, right? So you have those two options. There's automatic audits, and then we can demand for audits. So for example, Arizona has already done 3 audits, right? So, and these are done at the local and state level. So you have all four of those kind of things at play. Those are always done. Those are like automatically done, and they can be asked for, right? And that's at our taxpayer dollar every time that's done. Okay. Next,
Well,
we
what
have
was
our
upset the taxpayers' dollar is trying to impeach fucking Trump.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't fuck with the Rush inclusion thing, for example. I thought that was
So there's
a lot
that.
of bullshit.
We
But
spent
so
millions.
but you brought up election, so let's stick to election because this is a hot one.
Fair enough.
But I actually agree. I mean that specific point, I didn't fuck with Rush inclusion for the most part. I think there's stuff to look into as it relates. I don't like any time of politicians hiding their financials. That's just sketch as fuck. So I don't like that, and I think it's worth looking into. I think why are you hiding that, right? But to your point, some of the ways they went about that, I didn't agree with, like the Steele dossier. I didn't agree with some of the I think Michael Flynn's trash can, but the way the FBI played him, I don't agree with.
I think you might be a half-assed conservative.
Bro, I used to be a Republican, dude. I was a registered Republican until 2019, bro.
I think
Like,
you're still halfway there, brother.
I'm not fucking crazy, dude. I know y'all like think I'm crazy, but I do have some. I'm not fucking all. I'm
I
pretty
don't. I
reasonable, man.
think you might
I'm
be a
just fiery,
half-fucking
bro. I'm just a
conservative,
fiery
brother.
motherfucker, but I'm pretty reasonable. But also, so we have the states, right? So you got the local and state audits, recounts, right? Then we can look at our executive branch and who was running the executive branch, Donald Trump. So his people put into place in DOJ, CISA, and the Department of Defense, right? So yeah,
Right.
Christopher Krebs and William Barr, they follow up on any claims of fraudulent activity, any claims of misconduct, wrongdoing, things like that. They follow up on that stuff. All three of those entities, which at that point in time were ran by Trump's people, confirmed our election. Independent third-party watchdog groups brought in by Trump confirmed the election. We can look at the Supreme Court, the state courts, the federal courts. There were 70 plus cases. Sometimes they dismissed the cases because there was procedural errors. Which here's the thing: if this shit's so fucking important, you cannot have procedural errors. That's just rookie. That is rookie. All right. And they had cases that were dismissed because of lack of evidence. So that's just outright. You don't have anything to support this. Now, what the left gets wrong is when they say there was no fraud. You have fraud in any election. If you have 100
Well, I
million
was told
plus.
that last week. I did an interview with CNN,
Mhm.
and the guy from CNN tried to tell me there was no voter fraud. I was like, there was none. He was like, no.
Yeah, that's
He literally
silly.
told me. He told me no, there was none. And then I brought up the audit in Arizona, and you know what he said to me? Oh, that's just a sham.
Well, I would
And my
agree with that,
response
but I
to
can
him,
explain why. Go ahead. My
my
bad.
response to him was, it's a sham right now. But if for some reason they actually come out and say Biden won, you pieces of shit will be all over your network talking about how it was the best audit ever. And
Yeah,
they would.
100%. They would because they would spin the shit you guys used against you.
They'll
Not
spin
gonna
the
lie.
shit out of it, but they fucking know how it's going to come back.
Because exactly because we know how it is. Like because again,
Yeah,
so
because we know Biden cheated.
but I
Because
just so we
that's a
went
thing.
through. Well, we went through the audits, right? We went through the recounts. We can go through again Department of Defense, CISA, DOJ, which were all ran by Trump. The third-party independent watchdog groups, which are nonpartisan, which Trump brought in, and again the Supreme Court cases. So I just named the USA. We love this country, right? So I just named our checks and balances. I just named our electoral process. I just named
I
our
mean, do you think these people are not paid off? It's like the same thing in the damn Derek Chauvin thing. It's like you had a damn BLM member on the freaking jury. You
But
know,
see, this is where we have to concede. You and I, we have very different views on Black Lives Matter, right? So is it possible that one of us is like, dude, I can handle criticism of Black Lives Matter. Maybe they're not, maybe they're counterproductive towards what they're trying to do. I can have that conversation, but I can't have their terrorist conversation, bro. That's just too much because it doesn't
well, do you
separate.
think the Proud Boys are a terrorist organization?
Yeah, because there's actually so again FBI, bro. Like our own, like we have.
Actually, the FBI denounced it about 3 weeks ago.
Do you know who
So
the
did the
FBI was working
Pentagon.
with for a
So
long
you're
time?
wrong.
Do you know who the FBI was working with for a long time? Their top one of the top informants.
I'm a Proud Boy. I know people that work at the Pentagon. I know they denounced it. So
So
the Proud Boys are not a terrorist organization to the FBI. I can guarantee that.
because your top dude was an informant with them.
He was for other
Because your
reasons.
top
You
dude
know
was
what
an
he was an
informant with
informant
them.
for?
He was a Fed boy.
He was an informant for fucking child trafficking. He was helping lock people up for child trafficking. So you clearly don't know what you're talking about. I know him
There's more to
personally.
it. But fair enough. I'll concede if you know him
So feel
personally.
free to
If you
go
know him
do the
personally,
research on that. But he wasn't an informant of the Proud Boys. He was an informant for whatever happened beforehand. And he was literally helping people get locked up that did child trafficking. So you know what? He's a fucking hero. Real shit.
so if you know him personally, I'll refrain from comments. I'm not gonna try and shit talk people you know.
Yeah, I
So
have
fair
him on
enough.
my goddamn phone. I can text him right now. So I
So
know him
fair enough.
personally, and I know the real deal. And that's the real deal.
So I will not shit talk people you know. So fair enough. Like I said, if you know him personally, I'll leave that one be. But again, see, it goes back. See how deeply emotionally you felt about being called a terrorist. Now, is that fair to throw that on the other side? Because now you felt like you don't.
I
You
mean,
felt like you were.
everybody wants
So
to
here's the.
keep calling
Let me go one more thing. You felt like you
the
were
January
misunderstood right
6th
there,
thing an
right?
insurrection.
You felt like I just misunderstood you right there, right? Like as a person, kind of because of the attachment to that group. You felt hella misunderstood by me, right? Because of my
Do you
comments.
think January 6th was an insurrection?
Yes.
Do you think 2 weeks ago when BLM went into the Capitol at Oklahoma was an insurrection?
I don't know enough about that to comment. You want to give me some
Oh,
details?
well, that's a real thing. And
No, I'm not
based
saying it's
on the
not.
definition of what BLM calls an insurrection, that's an insurrection as well.
Well, what did they call
However,
an
nobody's
insurrection?
talking about it.
Well, how would
Feel
they
free to
define
look
an
it
ex?
up sometime.
You just said based on what Black Lives Matter would define as an insurrection. So what do they
The
define as an
definition
insurrection?
of not even BLM, based on the definition of what the left calls an insurrection, when they went into the Oklahoma Capitol 2 weeks ago, that would be an insurrection. But nobody's calling it an insurrection. Let me guess why. Doesn't fit the narrative.
An insurrection. So they were trying to usurp the Oklahoma government and take over.
They went in because what they were doing is they're trying to pass a bill that was about the protesters and them driving the cars through. And basically, if you're driving a car through a protest and they
You
come
know
up
they left when
in
they
front
were
of your
asked to
car,
leave, right? Like I'm sorry. I try to give the floor. I try to be nice. I can't. This one annoys me too much. I'm not gonna lie, dude. They were there and they left when they were asked. They got into the chambers and like I kind of let you talk about it, see if you'd represent it fairly, and
they
you didn't.
got into the chambers,
And what do they do?
which
And
was
what do they do when they were asked to
illegal.
leave? And what do they do when they're asked to leave? What do they
Why did
do?
they even get in? Why did they even get
What did
in?
they do when they're asked to leave, though?
The same
That's
thing that everybody did on January 6th,
you
brother.
can't answer the question, which is always a tell to me.
I
I
just
answer your
answered the fucking
questions.
question. The
Did
same
they
thing they
leave?
did on January 6th. And you know how I know what they did on January 6th? Because I was in that bitch.
Was anyone charged with conspiracy or sedition
They
or any of
should have
those
been.
acts? Why they left?
Doesn't matter. They were there. Insurrection.
So again, what's an insurrection? Define it for me.
You tell me.
You're using the word, so define your term.
I'm basing it off what you guys say. And what
You're you.
insurrection
I
is
have not
on the
said. You
left
asked.
is
You asked.
basically going into a government building trying to stop a bill being passed or basically interfering.
You asked a question and you brought up
I just
insurrection.
answered the question
So
and
I'm
what
going
I
to
have to
ask
say
you
about it.
to define insurrection for me.
I
Define
literally just
insurrection.
answered the question. It's going into a government building while they're in the process of passing a bill or a law and
That's
interrupting
not
it.
insurrection. That is not
No
insurrection at all.
shit. So that means January 6th was an insurrection,
That's no,
which
that's
is
not what it means.
exactly what the Pentagon
So
just
hold on
said
a second.
that
So
January 6th
there
was
was
an
no
insurrection.
violence on there was no violence on January 6th. That's what you're telling me?
There was no violence on January 6th either. Oh
Oh my god.
no, no, no. Are we
Oh
talking
my
about like the
god. That's a
officer that
factually
Hitler
fucking
fired
false
from
and
the
just
church? Oh wait,
incorrect,
that got
bro.
debunked. That didn't happen.
You
Because the
wait, you don't
only
think
violence that
you
happened on
haven't you
January
wait, so you
6th,
haven't seen the actual footage of hand-to-hand combat in our Congress. You
bro,
didn't see it?
I don't need to see anything. I was in the building. The only violence that got that happened on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt getting shot by a dude that later was found out to have BLM shit on his goddamn Facebook.
So, are you not supposed
You
hold on, are you
do
not
not
supposed to
find that
hold the line?
ironic?
I don't give a shit. You're supposed to hold the line against insurrection.
It was an insurrection.
So there was no
Here, the
violence.
only people calling January
Bro,
6th
there
an
was over dude,
insurrection
there was
right
over
now is the
150
media,
officers.
the
There was over
FBI, and the
150
Pentagon.
officers attacked. There was over 150 officers attacked on January 6th.
No, there wasn't.
Are the so the cops are lying? The cops are lying
Show me
about that?
receipts.
See, here we go. Good lord. This is a bad one, my dude.
I want to see the receipts. And there was Antifa in the building too, by the way.
Based
If you
on what
didn't know about that.
receipts on that too then. Give me your receipts.
And you want to? Do you want to
Give me
know how I got?
no pause.
No,
Pause.
that's what I'm
No
saying. Do
pause.
you want to know
I'm
how
fine.
I got in the
Pause,
building?
fool. I'm finding your receipts. Go find your receipts. We'll
First of
come
all,
back in
don't
a
start
minute.
name calling, sweetie.
I said fool, homie, like it's like endearment. You're chill. My
You
bad
know the
though.
way I got. Do you know the way I got in the building? I walked through an open front door, being held open by cops, and waved in. I'm a goddamn patriot, and that's the
So
extent of it.
find me your receipts on Antifa, because you made a claim. I'm finding you my receipt right
Show
now
the
on the
receipts.
cops. So, but you got to go get yours too. It works both ways, right? Do you have your receipt?
I was I was there. That's my receipt. I saw it.
That,
I was there. I was in the
but
building.
so you saw everything that took place, every little
I didn't
thing.
see everything. I'm
Well,
not
then you
saying
don't know
people
what you're
didn't do
talking
dumb
about.
shit there, but I'm saying the
But
majority of it was not bad shit. And when I'm saying there wasn't 150 cops injured, and if there were 150 cops injured, it's probably they fucking tripped down the stairs or something.
uh,
It wasn't them getting beat up by patriots. I can tell you that. Look, we
so
don't say back the blue
Per
and east the
Capitol
blue.
Hill
That's not how we
police,
roll.
per Capitol Hill police, 140 plus officers were attacked on January 6th. Per Capitol Hill police. So if you want to call the Capitol Hill police who are there liars, by all means you can call the cops liars. But it
Okay,
doesn't
so
sound very
somebody
back the
said,
blue.
can somebody look?
There's
Everybody had
charges.
body
There's
cams on,
actual
right?
char. So we don't back the blue. We don't back the blue then.
No, we do back the blue.
Well, then why
We
were there
back the
150
blue. They
officers
weren't
attacked
you.
that day?
You want to defund the police.
Oh, we should talk about that one. You did bring that one up earlier, so we should talk about that one. Do you want to? So that's the last thing though. So I brought my receipt,
Dude,
by the
there's
way.
literally videos of
Hold on,
BLM
homie.
changing into
I
Trump
brought,
gear.
but I brought my receipt just now for you. Where's your receipt for Antifa?
Did you just hear what I said? There's video of BLM changing into Trump gear to go into the Capitol.
So can I see it? Can you like
I
send it
can
to me?
find it. I can't do it. I don't think I can do it on this live.
No, no, of course not. But I mean, here's what we'll do. Everyone,
Yeah,
make
I'll
sure
send it to you
in
for
the
sure.
next day, can you post that on your page then as a
Sure.
receipt?
Absolutely.
Dope. And I'll be happy to post my receipt of the officers for you.
No
Fair?
problem.
And I'll even
Fair
post a
enough.
video of violence for you guys tomorrow. So everyone in here, check my page tomorrow. There will be footage of the violence that took place at the
Hey,
Capitol.
check mine too.
So, because I bring receipts. Anyways,
However, I'll be lucky if they don't remove it because we know
yeah,
TikTok is
that's actually
right-leaning to the
fair. We're both
left.
going to get our shit taken down for that, no doubt about
We're
it.
both gonna get a fucking attack tomorrow, bro.
No, that's actually I actually want to bring up this point right now because we did get a little heated right there, but I think this is something I want to bring up.
Dude, literally tomorrow, you and me are both gonna get shadow banned for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. That's something we all gotta. The left is full of shit on this one. We act like oh, cancel everyone. First of all, everyone fucking cancels. Everyone's fucking pansies in this country. All right, everyone's fucking
Yeah.
pansies. Learn to have fucking conversations. Right, like you don't gotta like shit, but big tech's fucking everybody. Because here's the thing: everybody in this
Yeah.
country complains about the oligarchy, right? Well, who's the mouthpiece of the oligarchy? Who's kind of sending their message? Big tech and corporate media provide the information climate, right? So if we're going to talk about corporations, if we're going to talk about the oligarchy, if we're going to talk about these powers, that fucking applies to big tech and corporate media. Fox News, CNN,
Yeah.
MSNBC, Facebook, Twitter, all these motherfuckers, right?
All right. So biggest question for you because we have 15 minutes left.
Yo,
We're
yo.
in an hour.
Yeah.
What has Biden done in the 100 days that he's been in office?
Ooh. So child tax credit, I liked. I liked some of the stuff on kind of like the energy front and like Paris Accord, things like that. Don't get me wrong, I don't like what he did with immigration. I don't. I do like the refugee increase because at first they were going to keep the cap at 15,000, which I didn't fuck with. But he came back after getting pushback from a lot of us on the left, and they raised that to I think 62.5 thousand. Not high enough for me, but I like that. But again, I don't like the optics on immigration. I don't like kind of not going down there, and I don't think they're taking it as seriously as they should. So I actually agree with a decent amount of what you said on that convo. People don't like what I have to say on this one, but I'm half Iranian, and here's what I'll admit right now, man. Donald Trump was better than any president we've had since the Islamic regime came into power. Since the
I hope
Iranian regime
somebody's
came into
videoing
power,
this right now. I want to
I
fucking
know.
do a
I've done a video on it
Donald
actually.
Trump's the best.
I've done a video on it, and it didn't get very much attention, obviously. Because here's the thing: I'll give the caveat that I don't think it's because he's like great strategy. I think he's a narcissist. But the Iranian regime plays chicken, and you're not going to win a game of chicken with a narcissist because they're just going to fucking keep pushing. So his maximum pressure strategy with the Iranian regime is actually a good thing. It's counterintuitive what people think, but the nuclear deal is really bad. And you guys on the right aren't going to like my analogy, but just hear out the logic here. Don't get mad at my application. Hear the logic out. Because if I think that the election wasn't stolen and Donald Trump's still talking about it, I wouldn't want to keep offering him elections, right? Because it seems like he doesn't really accept that. To that same end, the Iranian regime doesn't accept diplomacy. So if you keep offering up diplomacy, when they utilize diplomacy to attack, it doesn't make much sense, right? Now, I'm not condemning the Middle East entirely because our actions are. So, for example, the United States has ended democratic movements in Iran in 1953 with our CIA. We ended a democratic movement there. And then in the 1970s, we pretty much stood by and allowed the regime to come into play because we put the Shah into power in 1953, and he was kind of our little puppet there for a long time. And then when he didn't go hard enough on protests, well, next regime, right? And so that regime came into power in 1979, and they've killed 100,000 plus Iranians. That's on the low end. In 1988 alone, they killed 30,000 Iranians in a 3 month
None of
span.
that sounds good at all.
Nah, bro, it's all bad. So that's why I don't fuck with U.S. foreign policy when it comes to Iran because we've
I mean, what
created
do you
that
think about
mess.
the economy?
On which part, us or
I mean, right now, what do you think about it?
I've always conceded that economy is not my strongest point. I'm more of like a comms philosophy,
I mean,
social,
realize
foreign
that
policy guy.
when Donald Trump was in presidency, the Dow had a record high over
Uh,
22 times.
I mean, Biden broke that in the beginning of his thing. But here's
Well,
what
he
I'll,
broke it
oh, but not
because
multiple times though.
he
Yeah,
ended
but
coronavirus basically on his own to do that, you know. And he hasn't broken it 22 times in 100 days.
no, yeah, 100%. To your point, he's the max, not the amount. The thing with that, I would argue, is that Obama gets a lot of shit for economic recovery, but our economy grew at pretty much the same rate under Trump that it had been under Obama. So, like, if Obama was bad, then Trump was bad. If Trump was good,
Well,
then Obama was good, in
unemployment
my
was the
opinion.
lowest it was in 50 years.
But that was continuing a trajectory. So we had a really fucking massive collapse in '07, '08, '09, right?
So now we're talking to Obama. Look, the only thing Obama did in 8 years is put
I
men
just,
in the women's restroom. Let's be
I mean,
honest.
I mean, bro, we can't say the only thing. I mean, that's where we just get kind of silly, right? Because he did like literally hundreds of things, good and bad. You know what I'm saying? We can't say the only thing over 8 years. Like for example, what DACA didn't happen, right? So, I mean, I get what you're saying. You don't like Obama. That's cool. I didn't vote for Obama.
I mean,
I voted.
I'm not going to say I don't like Obama. To be honest, I voted for Obama the first term.
Well, then we know he didn't just put people in. And I'm not trying to be a dick, right? But it's like, this is the thing I think all of us can get better about is like, even I do this stuff, right? Like my videos, for example, when I just do like those kind of quick hit dumb things, it's like, let's analyze it a little more, you know? So, one of the things I think is interesting with Obama is that, what do you think on the birther movement when it comes to Obama?
On the what? Sorry, you're
On the
low.
birther movement, what are your thoughts? You're good. What are your thoughts on the birther movement? And if you
The
don't know, I can explain what
birther
that is.
movement?
Yeah, the birther movement, birther. Did you hear about that? Do you know about that?
No, when you gotta break that down
Oh,
for me.
yeah, I
Sorry.
got you. I'll explain. Yeah, no worries, man. Because I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people who didn't know what I was talking about there. So the birther movement was the whole idea that Barack Obama wasn't actually born in the U.S. What were
Oh,
your?
oh, that. Oh, you're talking about that.
Yeah.
You know what? I can go one way or another with it. Honestly, I don't really give a fuck either way. That's how
And
I am with that. I mean, if it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. I really don't care. If he wasn't, it doesn't really matter to me. I care more about what he did when he was in office, which I felt like was a bunch of nothing. So there's that.
so fair enough. Let me expand on why it's problematic though, and I brought it up because so not everyone is gonna have that same view as you, right? You're pretty chill about it. You're like, that's not something I was super focused on.
I mean, a
But
Hawaiian nurse did come out and say that she falsely did some documents
I mean,
that would support.
it's been thoroughly debunked, but the thing that's important to remember here is that's actually we talk about unity and divisiveness. It's a deeply divisive belief to claim that someone was not born in this country and is now a president. That's a deeply divisive belief. And why was that claim made? Has that claim ever been made about any president before?
You do realize that she disappeared after the fact it was debunked, right?
I'm not going to address
Like
like
she's
again
nowhere. Nobody can find her.
my personal policies like I don't address non-factual things. I'll address things that are wrong. That's just like it's I don't I'm not it's just not a thing. Like I have no way to address to something that's not a thing. So again, we know Barack Obama. So if you think he wasn't born here, make the argument. But we're not going to do the skepticism things. That again goes
Well,
back
he
to.
claims Kenya as his home on video.
So do you think he wasn't born here then?
If he says he claimed Kenya as his home, then no, I don't.
So you don't think Obama was born here?
I didn't say he's not American. I didn't say that he wasn't legit. But what I
No, I
am
know.
saying is if he's claiming Kenya on a video that that's
But
his
let me
home,
ask you
it's
a
probably his
follow-up
home.
question because it goes back to what you. Because here's the thing: he wasn't born there. But here's the thing: let's just say he was, in your point of view. Do you think anybody's going to be as chill as you are about that? Do you not think a
Sorry,
lot
go
of people?
again.
No, you're chill. Do you think everybody's going to be as chill as you are about a possible foreign-born person being our president? You don't think that's going to create a lot of animosity?
Maybe a little bit.
Do you know how many Republicans believed that? Like hardcore believed it? Over
Probably a lot.
50%. Over 50%. Is that not an inherently divisive belief when you're trying to say someone shouldn't be president because they weren't born here based upon, I think, the color of their skin? Because that claim has never been made about a white man.
So let me ask you a question. So if you
Yep.
saw the video of him saying that his homeland is Kenya, what would your thought process be?
He spent a
Would you
lot of
not
time
believe
outside the
it, or
U.S.
would you? I like if it's on freaking video, and you
Dude,
saw him specifically saying it. Then what?
my homeland's Persia,
Okay.
but I
Are
was
you an
born in
American
America.
citizen?
Yeah, I was born
Are you an
here.
American citizen?
I was born here.
Legally, okay. Then who gives a fuck?
Exactly, but do you see the disconnect there? Just saying. So I have a different. I'm half Iranian, right? My dad's from Iran, the ancient land of
Yeah.
like the Persian Empire. So like I have multiple homelands, man. Like I fuck with America. This is my home. Like I'm an American first. Like I identify as an American. I don't identify as Iranian, right? But the point is, he's spent time outside the country. Like he has family outside the country. This is a country where a lot of people like have come from outside it, right? Like there's people whose homelands are not the U.S., but now it's their home and they have multiple homelands. So I don't think that means anything. To me, what matters is I respect you. I'm not. I'm actually respect that your view is like, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, and you're cool. Like I respect that. That's like a pretty laid off like approach. I just don't think everyone shared that view, and I think if a lot of people believe that about someone, it can
I mean,
create
honestly, I can
tension.
care either way. You know what I'm saying? But like,
Yeah.
truth is truth. But at the end of the day, if somebody comes here and they become a legal citizen, they're a legal citizen regardless of where they were born.
Do you mind if I hit you guys up with some data, just because I think we're kind of getting to that point? I want to throw some numbers out there that I think are kind of important for people to hear. Is that cool?
Go for it.
And then I'll let you respond. So there's a lot of talk. So first of all, I don't disagree that you have to somehow. First of all, I think we need to make legal immigration easier. We have to allow more refugees. But with that being said, then be super hard on traffickers and things like that at the border, right? Make it so that those. Because if you make it easier to get here and we stop doing some of the shit we're doing in terms of our economy, in terms of global policy and some of our military industrial complex acts, right? We have 150 plus bases around the globe. We cause a lot of migration with drone strikes, things like that, right? And so the
Right.
issue for me is, I think if we curbed a lot of the empire's actions, it would reduce a lot of the migration for starters, right? And then if you made it easier for people to come here, because the thing is, legal immigration helps our economy. Like it literally helps our economy, right? Because you're bringing more people into your workforce, you're bringing more ideas in the workforce, more skill sets in the workforce. You're just increasing GDP, right? But what's important for people to realize is I think there's this misconception on illegal immigrants, all right? Illegal immigrants actually commit crime at a lower rate than citizens who are born here. Do you know that?
Well, first of all, illegal immigrants committed a crime the second they stepped across the fucking border because they're illegal immigrants.
But let me answer this question. If you're supposed to allow for refugees at a certain point, and we're blocking refugees, which means we're now acting illegally. Once someone acts in a way towards you, aren't you allowed to sidestep that and do you to some extent in life? If someone's not playing by the rules, do you have to play by the rules anymore? Like you personally, if someone's not like, let's say we
Well,
had an
I mean,
agreement,
I guess not. I mean, Biden doesn't play by the rules. That's why he's letting them in.
right? So
That's
yeah,
why
I
it's
mean,
a
like,
thing. Like he's literally breaking the fucking law by
but
letting them in.
let me give you an example. I'm trying to get here. So we generally agree because I think we're both the same type of dude, bro. Like if
I mean,
I think
all right, do you not agree that illegal immigrants are breaking the law?
but I'm trying to address that question right now. So that's why I wanted to
Well,
try
it's
and
a
talk,
pretty straight answer. It's either yes or no.
which just goes back to what I'm talking about. It's more complex. Here's the problem. I think conservatives, and I mean conservatives, I used to be a conservative, I think they like really easy dot to dot answers when sometimes life is fucking more complex than that, no matter what anyone wants to fucking say. So this is an example of that complexity, and let me get through this. If refugees are legally allowed to go to certain ports of entry, legally, we as a United States have that legally written in. It's international law to some degree. We allow for that, and then we're blocking that, meaning we're not holding up our end of the legality, right? Because we're talking about illegal immigrants.
All
So
right,
if we're
don't don't
blocking,
don't dance around it.
dude,
If
I'm
a
not dancing, bro.
illegal
This is where I
no,
get
if an
irritated. I'm
illegal
not dancing.
immigrant comes into the country, did they break the law?
Not if we blocked them first illegally. It goes back, dude. If you block, I'm not gonna hear me out. Just let me
We're not
finish the
blocking them.
answer.
We're bringing them in.
Let me finish my answer, okay? You're not letting me finish my answer. Have some composure and let me finish my answer. Because I promise you, I will answer your question. I
All right.
promise you on the back end, I will answer your question directly. All right? Because you ask a fair question, but you got to let me answer it. I'm not going to be forced into saying what you want me to say. I will answer your question how I feel free to answer.
Go
All
for it.
right? I'll just say it. Yes, if you cross the border illegally, you're doing it illegally. Okay? Yeah, that was how I was going to end it. Now we can have the conversation.
There
If
we go.
we are doing something illegally ourselves, we just agreed. So, for example, we agreed when we were talking to come into this and try and have a good conversation, right? Which I think we actually accomplished, right?
No, it's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, but for example, like let's say I came in here and really started being an asshole just off the get go. Fair is fucking fair. Then you can come back at me, right? Because like we had an agreement, and I just totally reneged on that agreement. You don't have to keep being nice, right? Because like, well, you just went off chart. I can go off chart now, right? Fair is fair. All I'm saying is, if we're blocking people from coming here legally, fair is fucking fair. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it necessarily. I'm just saying when we don't follow our own rules, and to your point, This goes for everyone. If rules aren't being followed, it allows for chaos, which is why you do have to follow rules, everybody. So that means Biden has to follow rules, Trump has to follow rules when it comes to refugees, etc. So that's all I was saying. It's sometimes people aren't getting blocked; they're just crossing illegally, no doubt about it, 100%. Sometimes people overstay visas. That I'm saying 100%. But sometimes people are
Yep.
trying to do it the right way and they get blocked. That's all I'm saying.
All right,
Fair?
we're coming up on that time.
We are. Do you
I'm
want to?
actually saying this for another reason.
Mhm.
We should do this again in like 2 weeks.
No, I agree. I'm down to do this again 100%.
That way we can just tackle other shit. Because I think between you and me, this is a longer conversation.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't want to keep people on here for 3 hours either. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
and well, plus I got a night to have too, bro. I think an hour
Yeah,
is a good
exactly.
time. I just
So
want to say, let me
let's
go ahead
shut
and
it down.
do your closing, and I'll close, and
Well,
then
I mean,
we'll
my closing down is just say thank everybody. I mean, yeah, I'm done with debating.
dope. Okay,
Thank you
perfect.
everybody for coming in. Thank you guys for being peaceful and on some real shit. Thank you on both sides for not reporting either of us and getting it shut down.
Yes, thank you for that because dude, lives get shut down easy, man.
Yeah,
So on
we
that
really
note,
do.
do
So
you have a
obviously
YouTube
everybody
page?
went by that, which is cool.
Hey, bro, plug your social media real quick. Plug yourself real quick. While you got your audience, plug. Do you have like a YouTube or anything?
No, I don't. Well,
Okay,
I do, but I don't even
so
care.
here's
Oh,
what I can do then,
hey,
because I
you're
know
gonna
you got
put
more
this on
people.
YouTube, right?
I'm not going to.
Yeah, I said
Do,
you are, right?
yeah, I am. Exactly.
Okay,
Do you,
no, I
you're
found
cool.
your YouTube because I want the video
Yeah,
of it. That's why.
yeah, you're cool with that, right?
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
even
yeah,
I
yeah.
can find a way to
Absolutely.
send it to you because I think you can even download it, bro. Do you know how to download your lives?
I do. Oh, you're right. I can
Yeah,
do that, right?
yeah.
Oh, well, I was worried about it because I was like, I thought we were gonna get shut down.
Dude, I mean, that's what I
I
was
was so
talking
worried
about with some
because
of
if
my
you get shut
people.
down, you can't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
no, because
anyway,
they
thank
delete
you
it off.
everybody. If you have any closing remarks,
Yeah,
if not, then we'll shut the
I'll
shit
be
down.
quick. I'll be super quick. I just want to say thank you, especially because we did have a few moments where we kind of got a little bang bang. But see,
It's
guys, we can
supposed to.
do it. You can do it. You can get a little hard in the paint and move past it. So what I want to say is check out the YouTube page. I have multiple conversations like this up already. I've done one with this boy Steel Walker. I've done multiple of these already. They're up there. I'll be posting all of these there, and
Yeah,
I'll be doing
Steel's my
multiple ones of
boy.
these. Yes, he's chill.
And what I do want to say out for everybody too, from a moderator standpoint, Honeycomb.45 is my main moderator. Follow her,
Yep.
and her content's
Cheyenne for
awesome too.
UBI. What's her name? Say it one more time for my people.
It's Honeycomb.45. That's my main moderator. She's a badass and she's got good content. Follow her.
Let me plug two people. Resist for Humanity. That's my boy in the trenches. He's a shit talker like me. And then
Yes, sir.
Cheyenne for UBI. She's my moderator. She's backstage. She's brilliant. She keeps me in check. You think I say some shit? You should see the shit I don't say because of them. So, so thanks everybody. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
All right, brother. Later.
Later, man. All right, guys. I'm gonna stay.